Hello everyone. The other day I posted a video of me doing a wax up. It was pretty sped up, so I wasn't able to dive into great detail with that case. However, today with this full mouth wax up, we're going to dive into some further detail. Hopefully you get something out of this. I'll make it as engaging and entertaining as I can. A lot of the work that we're going to be doing here today is pretty tedious, so hopefully you stick around, and by the end of it, you should have a better grasp of how to do these wax ups within ExoCAD. Also, try to keep things moving. So, with that being said, we'll just dive right in. We're setting up our model axis essentially here. If you remember from the last video, we're going to refine that later on once we correlate the photo with the scans. But as for now, we'll just call that good there. And in the project folder, we designated these teeth as pontics. Once we've designated them as pontics, we just brought in the STL files, and that's pretty much what we've done so far. So we're going to proceed. Now we're going to clean these models up. You could see there's a lot of, it looks like it bypassed that process. So we'll just do that real quick. We're going to go into Edit Mesh. And then remember the hotkeys when you're working on both arches. So we're doing the lower and upper arch with this case. We're going to have different hotkeys than we would if we were just working on one arch. So if we're just working on, let's say, the upper jaw and the lowers are opposing where we're not doing any work, we would click A to get rid of the lower, and then S to bring the scan or the working model in and out of view. But because we're working on both models, if we click S, it's going to take both the upper and lower jaw out of view. So the hotkey is going to be X and N. X for upper, N for lower. And sometimes I get those confused, so you may see that as we work through the case. But for now, we're just going to get rid of all of this extra data that doesn't need to be there. And this is pretty tedious, but as you could see, we're going to highlight that, then click delete on our keyboard. If you want a more crisp line, you could just highlight, and then before you double click, just click delete. And now you've got a little bit of a more crisp line. It doesn't really matter though, whether it's a little rough around the edges or not. I'm a little rough around the edges, so we're going to go with a little bit of roughness. And it's good to see that there isn't any extra data here on the underside of the scan. I noticed this hole here, so we're just going to close that up. And I don't know if I created that or not, but now we're going to click none to get rid of that, and then bring in our lower jaw. Highlight what we need to highlight there. And because this is a full arch wax up, we want to maintain as much of this scan as we can. That's going to be beneficial for when you go to transfer it into the mouth, as well as for getting, for getting the scan of the wax up to correlate with the prep scan. Because really the tissue, if we're to prep an entire arch and then try and correlate the scan of the wax up to that prepped arch, the only corresponding data points will be the tissue. So that's another good reason to maintain as much of that as possible when you're cleaning up these models. But again, it also aids as an occlusal stop whenever you're transferring that, let's say, putty silicone matrix that we've made using the wax up model into the mouth. The tissue and having more of that involved in that matrix is going to help stop that, so you're not over compressing on one side or the other. You're getting a nice accurate transfer, in other words. Okay, so we've cleaned up the model. Now let's jump back into Wizard, and then here we'll do the smile creator. So we're going to bring the photo in, and then we'll cut right back to the video. Okay, so now we've got the photo in here, and what we're going to do is click on corresponding data points between the scan and the model. You could really use any clear, distinct point. It gets kind of fuzzy here on the centrals. I tend to like using that mesial and incisal edge of the laterals. So that's what I've done there. And we're going to get rid of the lower, and we're just lining up the outline of these, or of this scan, with the teeth in the photo. And you could see the width of the arch is a little bit too wide in the scan. So we'll narrow that down by adjusting this right here. Okay, so looks like we could even go a little more narrow. I like to be real precise here, so that takes a little bit of playing around with the image, the scan, and what have you. But that's actually a really good point to move on. We'll clear what the software has generated for the lip line, and we'll just start from scratch on that. All that we're doing is we're cutting away at this inside portion of the lips, essentially the frame of the smile. Okay, that's looking groovy doovy. And now we'll move on. So that's all looking good. We're going to click skip, and then we're going to line up these dots in the pupils, and then that's going to snap the photo to that upright view of the face. Bada bing, bada boo. And then right about here is when I stop. You could proceed with all of this bullshit, but I'm not a big fan of it. So we're just going to stop there. Then we're going to go to our smile view, and now I'm going to line up the midline. And I just like to cut the papilla in half on this center line in this graph that we see here. And the hotkey for the graph is hold Control, Shift, and R. And as you click R, you'll bring in different levels of that. So you could see now it's behind, now it's in front. And that's kind of the order that that goes in as you click R. But hold Control, Shift, and then R, and that's going to bring up the grid. So we're going to cut that papilla, which we've done there, and then we're going to add that view to our what's going to end up being a good decent amount of views. So let's move on. We're still in wizard mode, and at some point we'll jump out of wizard mode and move into expert, but as of right now, wizard is good. And I don't know why. Wait a minute, what am I doing here? Okay, yeah, we're good. Look at that. That's going to be, oh, that's going to be fun to play with. Trying to manage that space. See, really, these two bicuspids, and I wonder how this looks in relation to the lower. Yep. Yeah, a little bit of ortho just on these teeth to mesialize those teeth would be perfect alignment, and then it would give us the space necessary for this molar. But that's where we come in. We'll try and create a realistic we're going to try to manipulate that with the wax up and the positioning of the teeth, but you also don't want to just idealize everything and make an unrealistic outcome for your wax up. I'm pretty big on that. And as you could see here, I may have mentioned this before, or may have not mentioned this before, but the bite scan for this case was taken in the open position, patients in CR, and I actually somewhat like the opening that's been created physically for that scan. We may manipulate it slightly by increasing it or decreasing it. It just depends on what's required to restore these teeth back to, like right there, I'd say we need a little bit more of an opening, but in the anterior we have plenty of openings. So we'll play around with that with the virtual articulator potentially. Luckily these are implants, so if we need little squatty teeth right there, that can be done. Just going to need to be screw retained. You don't really have room for a custom abutment in that situation. But the implant position does look pretty decent. That's a little bit lingual. They're both a little bit lingual, but oh shit. And this is supposed to be, look at how close they are. This is a fucking nightmare. Look at how close these implants are. And of course, these are like healing abutments, but still, that's just way too close. This needs to be over here. Better placement for what's going to be premolar. I was thinking molars, but we may need to alter that to a molar and a molar here. And we'll kind of create that interproximal contact right between these implants. What a fucking dipshit whoever placed those. But who knows, maybe the bone was dictating where those implants could go, but I mean, I don't know. Excuse my language. Hopefully no children are around while you're watching this. But I'm shooting from the hip here. Okay, let's get back to the video. Right now we're placing the teeth. We'll just do what we know we need to do first. And that's one thing that I always preach when we're doing full mouth cases or any sort of case that has any level of complexity, or even when it comes down to marking a margin. Just do what you know you need to do next. Like, I know I need to do that next. So don't get caught up in the weeds or try and sort yourself out too soon. Just one foot in front of the other. So that's what we're going to do here. We'll address all those concerns that I pointed out as we move forward. So right here, we're going to select a tooth library. If you've watched some of my previous videos, I have a go-to tooth library for posteriors. I don't really mess around with anything other than these libraries. Before I had access to these libraries, I would spend what seemed like hours a week just trying to find the right tooth library for posterior teeth, because there isn't just that there. Well, until I found these libraries right here, you could probably see me highlighting those. There was never just that one go-to. There was one, and that's this one right here. It's called Rainbow, LMNOPQRRS. Okay, yeah, so this one worked semi-well. I liked the shallow fissure height. I liked that the cusps weren't too dramatic. There wasn't too much of an incline on those cusps, so I did appreciate that with this library, but I also don't like the emergence. There's always a lot to play around with. I mean, it got the job done, but now that we have this library, my friends, this one, our life has just gotten so much easier. It's just boom, done. We know we're going to go to one of these. And if you have the latest version of ExoCAD, then you would have access to these libraries. I noticed that these were included with the latest update, at least the update that I got. So hopefully you have these. We're just going to go with this one right here and then move on. And then lower, same deal. Look at this. What a God. That's fucking irritating. You'll see what I mean right here. So it's like, say we line up this bicuspid where it needs to go, or premolar, whatever the hell you want to call it. Look at the placement of this implant. It cuts right down the middle of, I mean, you would have almost been better off with one implant, putting two teeth on one implant. This is just, I know you guys see what I see. I know, because everyone that's watching this video and has made it this far is more than likely world-class clinician. And yeah, that is just not okay. This one's not too atrocious, but this one definitely needed to be closer to this premolar. So we'll play around with that. So we have our posterior teeth. Now at this point, we're going to jump into expert so that we could play around with the incisors. We'll leave the canines, honestly. I mean, and we could take a look at this patient, get an idea of like what's good for her. Her pre-existing teeth look kind of triangular in shape, a little more tapered. You could see we got to fill in some black triangles, so we'll keep that in mind as we're selecting our tooth library. But the canine, the shape of these canines actually goes really well with the library that we have selected. And I like to reference the natural shape or contours of a patient's teeth. Before we start making any drastic changes in contours, I like to somewhat stick within the realm in terms of shape of what the patient had pre-existing. How God designed this person's smile is somewhat along the lines of what we want to stick to. So let's bring the scans back in, take a deeper look at, we're going to remove the contact strength. So a little bit rounded in shape. I like that. I think that's a crown right there. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you can see we have these like nice, I don't know how to describe this, but we have somewhat of a sharp and rounded incisal edge. So we'll keep that in mind. Sharper incisal edges here on the canines. Obviously, the teeth are worn down, so that could be a huge factor there. But let's take a look at what we could find with these incisors. And as we work through this case, I have a feeling this is not going to be an easy one, but that's why they hired me for the job. I tend to find that, I would say a good 60 to 70% of the full mouth cases I'm doing, there's always, 80%, there's always like this big obstacle that you got to hurdle over to try and idealize function and aesthetics. It's very rare that even when you've got a patient that you put in aligners or deprogram or whatever it is, even then there's always, or 80% of the time I'd say, a big hurdle to get over. So given the natural shape of this patient's incisors, which we want to kind of stick within that realm, I'm going to go over here to Vita, see what we could find there. I tend to like this Triton one. That's another one that I used to use for posterior teeth. But this is a story of a girl who cried a river and drowned the whole... No, I was going to show you, this is somewhat what we're looking for, but that's not what we want to use. Here comes a part of the video that we can more than likely just fast forward through because this can tend to take a while. Like something like that, which I hate these tooth libraries. I bought these actually. This is like one of the first set of tooth libraries I bought, and they're total ass. So I don't recommend buying those. Let's see. I'm liking how this video is going. I'm hoping we could keep up the energy. So I'm going to take a little sip of my Alani here. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That could almost work. This one. I don't know if I bought these or did some trading with a colleague, but let's go with that. This one, I don't like it. I don't inherently like this one, but with a few modifications, I end up really liking it. So that's what we're going to go with there. We could utilize the canines that are involved with this library, but we're not. And then I have actually found a library that I like for the lower incisors. It's certainly outside of my, let's say, norm of what I would go for. We may include the canines here. Let's see how these teeth align, and that'll help dictate. Gosh darn it. There we go. Okay, that's good. Yeah, this one's good. And this one's good. Yeah, so we've got great alignment with our canines. So that's gonna really help with canine guidance, obviously. But that being the case, I think we could stick with this library for these canines. So we're going to highlight those incisors, go to Load Custom Model Tooth, and I actually really like the shape of these lowers. They just have this natural appearance. They're not too worn down, but they've got a little bit of edge to them. They're just a little edgy, and that's how I like it. I don't want it too soft, but I don't want it too hard. Just a little bit of an edge. If these were too rounded, it's perfect. And yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. And I think that they'll line up well with the patient's natural teeth. Yeah, they will. Okay. Give me one minute here. Okay. We're back. Let's start with our upper arch. And if you remember the last video I posted, whenever we're doing a full mouth case, I like to start by positioning the teeth to a point where we've restored what the patient has worn down. I'm going to say that again. We're just visually restoring what the patient has worn down before we start manipulating VDO, increasing, or in this case, possibly decreasing the VDO. I like to just visually restore what I believe has been worn down, which actually isn't all that much here, more so on this canine. But, and probably the posterior teeth, yeah, I'm seeing some restorative work there. But, yeah, we're just visually restoring what's been worn down on one side of the arch, both upper and lower. And then we'll go into our virtual articulator and manipulate that incisal pin by increasing it to a point that that is complementary, or that gives us the sufficient clearance that we need to maintain the portion of the teeth that we've restored. Jesus, I'm finding a hard time finding the words. Just watch. But yeah, so we'll go into chain mode, kind of do a bulk adjustment there. That's looking good. We may end up changing this tooth library here as we work through it. We'll see. No, I think it's going to work fine. See, the lingual portion of this is pretty wide, but that's an easy adjustment. Okay, no, I'm thinking I like it. And choosing the right tooth library, I swear, you get the wrong tooth library, you're going to be paddling upstream. You get the right tooth library, things just tend to fall into place. So that's why I emphasize getting the correct library so much. It's not because I'm like, even all that, well, I am picky about shape, but you can manipulate the shape of the teeth with, by free-forming the tools. But what's really beneficial is when the tooth library, especially at the emergence, lines up well. And on the lingual. The lingual is a big one. When things line up well on the lingual and at the emergence with your library, adding facial anatomy or adjusting the contours of the incisal edge or embrasures or what have you, that's much easier than trying to dick with lining things up at the emergence profile. But that's looking good. And I would say that's about the length that I would assume this patient's worn down. And we could bring the photo in and get a good look there. Oh, this is going to look good. And these teeth that we've selected are a little bit more rounded than what she had before, which is going to really help feminize her smile. She's lacking a little bit of volume in the lip region, the upper lip specifically. So, that kind of leans away from the feminine appearance that we're looking for. And then also the haircut, not sure if that's doing much justice in that department either, but we're certainly going to feminize these teeth. So let's move on. And again, we're just doing one side of the arch. And once we've done this side on the upper, we'll then transfer over to the lower, do that side, and then we'll start playing with the virtual articulator. So as you can see, I'm just positioning and scaling these teeth to fit within the arch, finding the right incisal edge position, lining up everything with the emergence. We're scaling things lingual buccally, mesial distally. We just want to find that fit. Yeah, that's looking good, 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 good. Let's bring in that lower arch again. You could see we could afford to line up the tip of our canine a little bit. Look, I would say ideally like maybe right there, but we'll cheat a little bit. And then we could probably rotate this. Now it's looking good. We'll just, you know, we'll fine tune things as we go, but I think for now that's pretty okay. I don't like that canine. No, canine's gotta go. Man down. Okay, so we're just gonna load a custom tooth library for this canine, see if we have any better options. Maybe this is the one to go with, but I think we could do better. We'll start with this one that we have here for our incisors. And that would be this right here. Let's just do that. I think that's gonna look better. Yeah, it does. Ooh, that looks good. Going to advanced. See, when you stay in the simple mode, you don't get the same freedom that you get as far as scaling the teeth as you do when you're in advanced mode. So that's just something to keep in mind. You're going to want to work in advanced mode. And then you hold shift down to just move one portion. You hold shift, or you hold shift and control, and it's going to scale the whole thing. So just hold shift. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And then we're going to have to cheat here on the distal of this canine. We obviously have some space to fill in, so we'll cheat on the canine. We're going to cheat on the bicuspids as well. Okay. And then we're kind of we're starting to gauge our buccal corridor here. You know, patients love it when you expand that, and I do as well. So, but we don't want to go too far with it. But I think we could. Well, we'll see as we work further down the posterior of the teeth. We'll start to get an idea of how far we want to bring that out. And then, as you could see, I like where the tip of this cusp is. Just in terms of like the smile line, I like the length. But our marginal ridge isn't where it needs to be relative to where this is. So what we're going to do, and we don't want to create deep fissures here because we have a lot of wear that we need to restore. And by creating a deep fissure, it just requires more preparation on that occlusal surface. So that's another reason I like flattening out these posteriors. Not too much. I mean, we could really flatten these bitches out. I just want a little bit of a flattening. And it just tends to work that way whenever you're doing a full mouth case, especially one where a patient's worn down their teeth. It's going to be hard to get them back to that, like, you know. See, and now we've got, you could see, look at that. See how that cusp, we now have it back in line with where it was, but we've raised up our marginal ridge. Doing this is a lot easier than leaving it, let's say, as is, and then free-forming it. See, because what we could do is leave it as is, then go in and free-form it. Well, I mean, that doesn't look bad, but yeah. This just, it's better for efficiency, honestly, because you're going to end up having to bring this portion of the tooth up. It's just how it is. And that's because we don't want to create a wax up that requires too much reduction on that occlusal surface, considering how much the patient's worn down these teeth. Start working on, we're looking at these marginal ridges here. And then we're also going to look at this buccal corridor. If we can, in fact, angle this out a little bit. Because it was like that. Angling it out creates a better, more symmetrical buccal corridor. We can increase the length of this because you could see it kind of like tapered in at the gingival portion, which is creating a little bit of asymmetry there. Then we could bring this in. And that's what I was saying about the buccal corridor. You can't really gauge it and determine how much you're going to bring it out or bring it in until you've worked back through the posterior. Because maybe this one can't afford to come out, but, you know, just based on where this one's lined up, maybe it has to come in. And it's like you may think, oh, that's going to expand the arch. We brought out that bicuspid. But actually it's not, because now you're hiding this whole portion of the buccal corridor, which is actually narrowing the appearance of the arch. So by making that buccal corridor symmetrical, that's how you're expanding it. We want to be able to utilize the amount that we've brought out of, you know, as we move back in the arch. Good Lord. I haven't done these tutorials in a while, so I find I'm skipping over myself here with my words, but whatever, deal with it. This is as candid as it gets, folks. I'm not coming to work in a tie and a suit. Okay. So that's looking good. And you know why? It's because I'm an artist. I am an artist. And that's what this is. We're just balancing out the science and biology of the human anatomy with art. That's looking good. You could see, to better the symmetry, we could bring that out. We could bring that in. We can honestly afford to bring this down from this angle at least. We could afford to bring that one down. Not that one. Look at that, new case. Okay, let's see how that looks from the facial view. That's looking groovy. Me likey. I like it a lot. And again, I don't want to bring this too far down based on what we saw here. We have extremely limited clearance. Hell, we may need to flatten this out more. As you could probably see why. We may need, there's a lot we're going to need to do. We're just going to have to freeform that down. Boy. And what's weird is it doesn't look like these teeth have super erupted all that much. You know, over here, I mean, let's see. No, it's just, that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess, with this one. That's super limited clearance, so we'll leave it there for now. Now let's go down to our lower arch. And what sucks is with the lower arch, you can't flatten out the posterior like we did with the upper arch, not with this tooth library at least. You could see it just doesn't allow it. In the anterior it does, but not in the posterior. And that brings up another tooth library that I used to work with a lot, but we're not going to use that one. But there is a tooth library that's really flat with good anatomy that I like to use, or used to use. Okay, so you could see we've got great alignment here with this molar. I like where the contact points are occlusally. We can probably bring that out a little bit, scale this out, maybe scale the upper in. No, not really. We're looking good. But I want to be able to manipulate both arches, so we'll just create access to both of those. And yeah, if we bring this in, just like maybe like right there, it's going to help with our emergence, and then we could bump that out by freeforming it if need be. But that's going to create better contact points here. Because we also don't want to make, no, that looks good. Okay, that looks good. And then we can actually scale this a little bit, but we have to be mindful of that implant placement right here. So I'd say that's as far as we're going to go with that. And then ideally we would have a little premolar right here, but if we're taking into account the implant placement, and of course we could cheat that premolar by bringing out the distal here, and that's we may do that. Let's see how that looks. So we'll line that up. And then if we bring that out, we can only bring it out so much. But we're just going to have some big premolars. Okay, let's see how this looks. That actually looks good. I thought we were going to have to fill that in with a molar, but no, that's good. See, and that's why we do what we know we need to do first. As things start to, massage themselves out and settle in, you may find that you were hard on that oral surgeon for no reason at all. And hopefully that wasn't my client that placed those. But no, I mean, I think we'll be fine. Could it be better? Absolutely. But since we're doing all the teeth, we can afford to create those little cheats, if you will. Where we cheated the distal, cheated the mesial. Yeah, no, that's gonna be good. So we'll move on. And then if we bring in our contact strength, we're not looking super bad there either. What we don't want to see is something like that. But this is manageable. This is all really manageable. Let's look at these marginal ridges. That's looking good. And of course, we can narrow down the occlusal table or the occlusal surface while leaving the gingival portion or cervical portion a little wider. So obviously that's not ideal just in terms of natural morphology, but given what, the situation with the implants, that can be done. This is looking good, folks. We could kind of distalize that a little bit. Let's see how the buccal corridor is looking after that adjustment. Okay. So that's looking really, really nice. What I'm thinking, we may find that we don't want to mirror the posterior side of these teeth. I don't know. We'll see. Because this is going to be so much different in terms of proportions than this side. So we may not mirror the lower. Okay, so let's work on the anterior now. This is looking, I was pretty negative to start this one off. And I tend to go into cases with a negative mindset so that I can be, like pleasantly surprised. I don't want to set myself up for an easy case and then find that it's like extremely difficult. But this is looking good. That's great. I would say she probably hasn't worn down the teeth this much, but I'd say like right there is probably good. And then we'll just bring out the lingual portion of this tooth, central right here. And then we'll be in a really good spot. But what we don't want to do here is try and get it into contact. Let's anticipate for bulking out the lingual of the upper. And that's what I mean. That's why I like to just focus on, okay, what has she worn down and what's it going to take to restore that? And then we go from there in terms of VDO or like in this case, maybe I'd rather bring out the lingual of the upper anterior or the upper incisors than lengthen these any more than they need to be. And I would say that the shape of these incisors that we chose, this tooth library, it's a little, I don't know, unconventional. It's not that Hollywood kind of shape, but I like that. Just gives you a chance to really express your creativity. And, a lot of times when patients ask for a Hollywood smile, what they're truly saying, and remember this, what they're saying is, I want fake looking teeth. Because let's think about it. A Hollywood smile just means they got veneers done. Well, if you could see that they got veneers done, then they couldn't be all that natural looking. You see? You follow that logic? What they're wanting is fake looking teeth, you know, up and down line angles, no incisal embrasures, close those bitches up. Uh, you know, I mean, the list goes on and on. They want a white picket fence for teeth. And I'm not a fan of that. Uh, you know, I put a lot of man hours and time and just years of training into learning how to make teeth look like, well, natural teeth. And natural teeth have imperfections, asymmetries, things that people, you know, the ordinary Joe who's going to get veneers done doesn't think about. And really, a smile is a lot prettier with those subtle imperfections. But that's just something people don't understand for the most part. Like, I love nothing more. I think of Billy Idol. I'm sure a lot of you know who Billy Idol is, but uh, at some point in his life, you could see that he got crowns done, but he didn't make them super pearly white. At least in this interview I saw of him years ago, they kind of had this like yellowish tint to them, maybe along the lines of B1, B2, A2. B1's a great go-to shade in my opinion for with like nice translucency at the incisal edge. That's the perfect shade. And especially when you're doing a full mouth and you don't have something to match to, a lot of people think, oh, since there's nothing to match to, let's just go pearly fucking white. But it's too much. It's overkill. And it just takes away from so much of the beauty of your smile when it's like you tend to lose the beauty of the shape of the teeth when they're that white, where it's nice to highlight the shape and the shade. Now, obviously, we don't want to create a bunch of coffee stains at the gingival portion of the teeth, but it's nice to have a more neutral color as opposed to a pearly white picket fence, uh, you know, chiclet color. So that's just my 2 cents. I'll stop rambling. We'll move on. But maybe there's something you got out of that. I don't know. So we'll reduce that a little bit. That's looking good. So far I like this alignment. We can indeed rotate this a little bit. And this tooth library is by no means like the perfect one, but I think it's good enough. We'll play around with the shape a little bit. And I'm talking about the upper incisors. It's a tooth library I don't use often, but I like it for this case for some reason. Sometimes you just got to go with that instinct. Okay, so you can see our emergence isn't lined up all that well here. We'll manipulate that. But the reason I left it this way is because we're already kind of tipping this canine a little bit outward. We don't want to tip it any more in this direction to line it up, because now we're throwing off the buccal corridor, we're throwing off everything. So we'll manually bring that into alignment and just focus on the ideal position here while we position these. Okay, so now is a good time to start free-forming, but I have a suspicion that there's going to be a lot of differences from this side of the arch to this side of the arch. Because typically what I would say is let's start free-forming, and we will. We're just going to free-form the facial aspect of these, then mirror, and then we'll do the emergence and the lingual contours individually. And you'll see what I mean. If you're not following along with that, it will make sense. And I'll point it out once we get to that point. And then let's do this. Let's check our midline. Remember we lined up this arch with the midline? You could see if we were to mirror this now at this current midline, this would be a pretty wide open incisal embrasure, which not the worst thing in the world, but we could close it up a little bit. And now when we bring this tooth into the midline after we mirror it, we're going to have a less open embrasure there. So again, for now, just with this case specifically, we're just going to focus on the facial aspect. That's lined up pretty well. You don't have to get it like dead on with the emergence, but you definitely want to get it as close as you can. Because we also want to try and give the patient a good idea of like what these are going to look like ideally. And when you go in and prep the teeth, you can adjust the emergence profile slightly by taking that margin subgingival. So that's just something that I keep in mind as well. It's not ideal for transferring the wax up to the mouth, but it is ideal for conveying to the patient or just showing them what ideal looks like. So when I say we're just going to focus on the facial, what I mean mostly is just line angles. And yeah, this tooth library, you got a little bit of a divot right here that I just remembered. So we'll start by filling that in. You can imagine if we had to do this individually, like say we weren't mirroring this tooth, there's room for error when you're doing small adjustments like that create asymmetries that aren't necessarily desirable ones. And this tooth library is really hard to work out line angles because there's so many rough patches. It's hard to get like a nice. So what we'll do is we'll somewhat smooth it out and then come in and highlight that. That's good, I guess. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay, so that's good there. I like to put a big focus on the mesial line angle. It seems to be the most prominent versus, let's say, a distal line angle. We'll kind of smooth that out and then come back in and highlight it. Get it from the facial a little bit. Let's see here. I mean, we don't need to make this perfect. Again, we want to create subtle imperfections. We just don't want anything that's obscene. Okay, that's good. I mean, honestly, that's a clean, nice looking tooth. We could probably bump that up a little bit. I like that. And then this lateral's always a bitch with this tooth library. So we'll kind of bring that out a little bit there. And I don't know exactly how I feel about this, but I think it's okay. We're just gonna roll with it. And what I'm talking about here is this mesial incisal embrasure. Yeah, we're gonna roll with it and then hit that line angle. And then let's tuck in this distal a little bit. Oh, just a wee bit. And in my opinion, that's a pretty feminine shape. It's nice and rounded. Shit. Something's off. Ooh, I like that. That's fun. Like that. There we go. And then let's see how much width we've added because it looked kind of wide. I think that's good. Let's see how that looks. Ooh, something's wrong. Uh-oh, hopefully I didn't wake up my son. Ooh, I like that. I like that. That's fun. That's fun. I like that. And it, like the whole facial of the tooth can somewhat come over. So we're going to lock in the cusp, which would be the incisal edge in this position, and kind of just do that. Does that make sense? And then I think after doing that, we can afford to bump that out a little bit. Let's see how this looks. Bump that out just a wee bit. Kind of hit that right there. That looks really nice. That looks good. And then you can see we're kind of cheating this here. If we were to line this up with the emergence entirely, we'd be a lot wider than I think we need to be. But see, by taking this distal margin subgingival, we'll be able to create this emergence. So that's something that Mr. Doctor needs to keep in mind. as they go on in prep. I don't know what client this is off the top of my head. Okay, that's looking good. And then we can afford to kind of dip that down. Oh yeah, that's looking great. Okay, let's freeform that a little bit, smooth that out. Okay, and then we'll kind of upright this distal contour right there. This is a tricky one. Little tricky. Kind of tuck that in. Yeah, definitely tuck that in. See how that's looking? That's looking pretty good. I like that. I actually do like that. That's good. Okay, now we're going to go over here to ridge and try and sharpen up this tip a little bit. Maybe even try and line it up with where it is preoperatively. God knows we don't need to prep any more than necessary with this case. Okay, that's looking really nice. And then we can afford to bring that one down a little bit. But we want to keep in mind our occlusal clearance that we have over there. And then maybe we can bump this up a little bit. See, that's one thing that's kind of shitty about ExoCAD is the way that you're able to manipulate the teeth is not as precise, honestly, as it is with InLab or Seric, which aren't like the greatest softwares. InLab is far inferior to, or ExoCAD's far superior to a software like InLab, but there are some things that I like better about InLab and Seric for that matter, because they are the same exact software when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, we can pop this portion of this tooth up, so, and then we could start looking at how everything aligns with the lower. So that looks really good. I like that contact point. We can bring out this portion a little bit to create a better contact point. That's nice. That's nice. And now we can start thinking about flattening this out. I don't know if you remember when we were positioning these teeth, I had noticed that even though the amount that we've restored here is pretty much in line with where the teeth are now, that's not so much the case on the lingual. You can see there's a lot more wear on that lingual cusp, or on all of these lingual cusps, than there are on the buccal cusps. Pss, pss, pss. Okay, that's good. I hope you guys are stuck around this long. I mean, this is, I don't know how this is coming off. To me, I feel like I'm going to fall asleep. Another sip. But all that I'm doing here is trying to vocalize the thoughts that are going through my head as I work through a case like this. So, and then we'll start playing with that emergence, lining things up there. That looks good. Let's get an idea of how that shape looks. That looks good. Good. I think we're a little bit high on this side. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's good for now. And as we virtually prep back this scan, we'll be able to get a clearer view of the contours and just how those look. You could see there's going to be areas that need to be virtually prepped, even with the amount of wear. I mean, and I find that to be the case most of the time, even with a patient that's worn down their teeth pretty severely. Even with opening up the VDO, there's still, it's still not going to be all additive, is basically what I'm getting at. Now, there are cases where everything's all additive, but everything's got to be aligned perfectly well, and the wear of the teeth has to be pretty uniform throughout the arch, throughout the whole mouth. So that's hardly ever the case. Like this patient in particular, you could see she's worn down the lingual, or not the lingual, the buccal, or not the buccal, the posterior a bit more than the anterior. Okay, we'll play around with that with another tool, this tool. Just smooth that back. We don't want to smooth too much from the facial aspect because that's going to throw off the buccal corridor, the symmetry that we've created there. So kind of want to hit that from below the tissue, like so. And that way you're not manipulating too much on this portion of the tooth, on the body of the tooth. See, if we were to, you could see as of right now, we still have maintained a good buccal corridor. In fact, it could come back a little bit. But if we were to adjust that from here, we would tuck that in too far. But that looks really good now. Okay, and then we'll kind of work that back as well. So we're almost done with this side of the upper arch. We just need to do what we're doing here on the posterior and the anterior. And that's just refining lingual contours and lining it up with the emergence. But once we've done that, we're a quarter of the way done. And then, you know, we'll have to harmonize everything, but that's just little tweaks. But the bulk of what we're going to do here today is just about a quarter of the way done. Now, I don't think the video is going to go on, you know. I don't think we're a quarter way through the video, but hopefully not. This would be a long video. Okay, so that's looking good. So we'll just stop there. And again, we'll get a clear idea of the contours that we've created once we've virtually prepped some of these teeth back. But as for now, I think we're at a good spot. We can bring that back a little bit. Yeah, that's gonna bump that out. Oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, my friends, on to the next. It's funny too, where you see the contact point on this canine is where she's worn it down. So we'll try and manipulate where that cuss tip is lining up to give her some better canine guidance. Potentially. That's what it's looking like as of right now, but we'll see. Okay. And I typically like to maintain some lingual anatomy, but with this tooth library, it's very minimal to begin with, so we're not gonna hone in too much on that. And let's be real, it's the lingual of the teeth. In all my years, I've never gotten a complaint for not enough lingual anatomy. Not once, ever. As long as everything's functioning properly, phonetics are good, all of the above, then there's really no issue with like actual anatomy. Shape, now obviously shape's important, but anatomy, come on. And I'm sure there's reasons for it. I think, you know, a lot of it has to do with the circulation of saliva and yada, yada, I don't know. Now I'm good, but, and I care too. I treat each case as if it's my mother's, but there's a line. There's certainly a line. Well, I mean, when you're just speaking practically, that's why I say let's be real. Because obviously you see, yeah, like I see it all the time on social media. Like I'll follow some of these like world-class technicians and shit, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But also, I'm just as world-class, baby, and that's not necessary. Okay, so we can start. Remember, we didn't go up as high as we needed to create some lingual or some contact here. Overjet's looking up. Oh no, it's looking good. I think I think we may need to add some length though, because this will give you a good idea of how much we need to bring out this lingual portion, and that's a bit excessive. So yeah, we'll lengthen the lower incisors a bit. Okay, I think that's good, and we'll see. We'll go back and forth with that, but we got to jump back into tooth placement to do that, and that's not something we're going to do right now. Okay, so that's fine. So now, at this point, I would say we can mirror this upper arch. I don't think I'm going to mirror the lower arch. So to mirror, I just posted a video on that recently. It was like a 3-minute long video with a little tip, and this would be the tip in action. We're going to go into tooth placement, go into chain mode. That's going to alter, just wanted to make sure we weren't doing the lower as well. That's going to alter the position that we just created. And again, that's because in chain mode, it won't allow you to intersect the teeth interproximally. So we're going to deselect all of these default settings, go into advanced, click undo, and then we're going to go back into chain mode and then click symmetry. And now everything that we've done over here has applied to this side of the arch. And now, if we wanted to, first, before we start positioning these, I'm going to go into tooth placement for all of the teeth and see what it's going to take to get some contact up here in the anterior. So we're going to go into advanced. Yep. So that's about where we need to be. Let's bring in our scan, see how that looks. I think that that's totally fine. And another way to cheat or to get contact in the anterior is to flare out the lowers, but I think our overjet's at a really good place. So I don't really want to manipulate that in any way that we don't have to. So we'll just add the length. And it's obviously what's necessary. That's looking good. Yeah, that's looking good too. So what we'll do here is increase that a little bit. And we may open up the jaw a little bit. We may open it up to a point where there's no more contact here, and then we'll refine in the posterior. I think we could use that opening regardless, just for this occlusal clearance specifically. And now we know we've got the room to do it in the anterior. So all is well thus far. The teeth are much longer on the lower, which, you know, you run into that every now and then. But we don't really want to try and make things too proportional up here on the upper, because then we're going to end up with pretty long teeth, and that's not what we want. I'd rather cheat the length on the lower than on the upper. So I think we're good. Yeah, we're good here. Okay, so now let's go out of that, and then I just want to focus on placing these uppers for now. We're going to go advanced. We're going to remove this contact strength because that's getting in the way. And then let's go to our snap to our midline that we've created and see where that. And oh, real quick, what we could do here before we do anything is actually just highlight this side of the arch. And you may notice this side didn't get any mirror action because this tooth right here doesn't exist on this side of the arch. So we'll just manually do that one individually. Okay, so let's go to move simultaneously, and then we could get a bulk movement there. So that's nice. And that's going to maintain the relationship that we've created between all of these teeth. That's going to maintain that on this side as we do that bulk movement. Let's go to our midline view. So that's realistically about where we need to be. We could start looking at the length. So that means What this is telling me is we can rotate this a little bit in that direction. And the central's looking longer regardless. So let's see the length of that central. That's good. Be a little bit longer. That's good. You could see we can rotate it slightly. There we go. That's, ugh. Could do it a little bit more. That's perfect. That's as close as we're going to get. So now we're going to go out of that and then bring in the whole arch. Go back to tooth placement. Okay, so proportionally, this lateral is much wider and the space is much wider than we have over here. So you would say to yourself, oh, we'll just scale it mesial distally and you're good to go. Well, now we've thrown off the symmetry, and it's okay to have a little bit of asymmetry with the laterals. You really want to focus that like 100% symmetry on the centrals. So that's fine. And let's see where things line up on the distal here. Yeah, so in my opinion, you could see like either yeah, so if we divide this papilla, this is, let's say this is our midline, this tooth is wider than this tooth. So number 9 is wider than number 8. So what we could do to line this up better with the distal is do that and then shift our midline. So you could see we could do this, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather cheat on the distal than cheat on the midline. There we go. Okay, that's looking good. We can afford to just do that a little bit. No, I don't even want to do that. I'm okay with cheating the midline a little bit in that direction, honestly, though. Let's do that. Let's create a new midline. Let's do this. So we'll add that view and then delete this old one so we don't confuse the two. And then we'll do that. Now we've given ourselves some more room on the mesial of this lateral to match the width of this lateral. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we got to overlap the 6th box about yay much. Now we've got symmetry, but let's see how this fits the space. And it's infringing on this canine too much, so I think we could do that. I think we could cheat that much on the distal of this lateral, because you could see we've already cheated here to make this lateral more narrow. Is this making sense? So we've kind of maxed out how much we can cheat by making this lateral more narrow. So now we got to cheat and make this lateral a little bit wider. And that gives us much better symmetry, almost not 100%, but it's, and then another way to get, or to make this one look a little wider than it actually is flare out the distal. So what we could do is rotate it in this direction, and that's going to flare out the distal. And then we can, whoops, then we can bump it out. Let's see what that's done for us. Yep, that gave us exactly what we needed. And then it looks like we could increase the length a little bit too. And then we could also rotate it a little bit this way. And then I'm looking at this box right here. This one right here. That's all symmetrical. This is perfect, you guys. We've now got this dialed. Let's see how things line up with the gingival. That's pretty good. We can shorten it just a little hair. That's looking good. Okay, let's see how this looks in the mouth. It's looking good. It's looking great. Yeah, we haven't widened things too much. Like, we haven't made the teeth any more prominent than they need to be, which is good. Sometimes when you have to find that room to close up the open bite in the anterior, you can make them too prominent. but we haven't done that here, so that's good. This one was naturally a little more narrow than this one, so we had to bulk that out, so that's good. But everything so far proportionally is pretty much in line with where she was before. She's not going to have a shock of a lifetime and ask, why do I have big ass horse teeth? We've avoided that, so that's good. And also proportionally, it's going to help us with the little minor width that we've added, because we've also added length. So we shall continue. Okay, this canine, this is going to be fun. Okay, let's see how our scan lines up. Nope, there we go. That's all good. Let's check our length. Oh, that's good. We can afford to bring this down a little bit. That's nice. That helps us with the amount of reduction that'll be required. Okay, that's good. Then we could even, hell, we could take this and check our symmetry here as well. You could see this canine on this side that we've already finished goes out about this much past this thicker line. And you can see we've done that here as well. So that fell into place really well. And then I think that the width that we're at is good as well. So what I want you guys to understand is to fill in a diastema this big, we're going to want to split the difference between this tooth and this tooth. So we're going to want to add to the mesial of this bicuspid, and we're going to want to add to the distal of this canine. But in order to do that, you have to, in order to execute that well, when it comes to the final restorations, you have to account for that with the prep design. So what would this entail? This would entail that we need to go subgingival about half a millimeter for sure, maybe about a millimeter on the distal of this canine. Same thing on the mesial of this bicuspid. We need to take that margin subgingival about a millimeter, or about a half millimeter to a millimeter on both of those teeth. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. And when I do these cases for my clients, I provide them with a file that helps them visualize that. So that'll be sent with this wax up so that my client can properly game plan for what's required in terms of prep design. That's looking really nice. That's looking pretty good too. Just gonna try and get like a bulk. And then this is gonna be a difficult space to manage as well, because we've got, look at that. Are you kidding me, dude? You're kidding me. I mean, okay, so we could cheat here, cheat there, and then we could cheat into that molar. That kind of gives us what we need. Still, you know, the proportions are way off. This is a situation where you almost may want to consider like adding a third bicuspid, and we may do that. Let's just get that out of the way for now and just work on this, and then we'll make that determination. See, and that's just the reality of the situation. Like over here, we were anticipating maybe 2 molars. It ended up working well. Over here, you know, we may need to switch out a first molar for a third bicuspid. So I think that's in a decent spot. Now we can bring this back in and start seeing what we have to work with. Ugh. Borderline. We're going to shelf that for now and start working on the lower. I want to bounce around a little bit here. I'm losing steam. Ooh, energy drink. Hell yeah. So we haven't freeformed any of this yet. And that's because we're dealing with completely different emergence profiles over here than we're going to be dealing with over here. So no need in freeforming any of that. As well as I'm not going to go crazy with the anatomy down here. So at this point, we could just mirror this side. So let's go to tooth placement. Remember the protocol: chain mode, deselect, advanced, undo, chain mode, symmetry. And then what's left? Bulk movement. So highlight that side of the arch, tooth placement, move all simultaneously, bulk movement. It's bulking season. Okay, so that's good for now. Now we can highlight the entire arch and start positioning. Let's see where this all lines up. God, this is looking, for what we started out with, or what I thought we were getting into, this is turning out decently well. In terms of like just the level of difficulty, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Same thing, we're just kind of back to positioning these where we think we're getting that. See, the proportions are way off because of that implant placement. So we're going to, and we cheated on the distal of this canine, so. Ideally, there would be no cheating, a completely monogamous wax up. That would be ideal. That requires really good pre-existing dentition, alignment, all of the above. So that's looking good for now. We'll refine all of it later. Still just kind of getting a bulk movement here. Emergence lines up well naturally with where we've already placed it. We could check symmetry while we're here on these centrals. Yeah, I figured that would be the case. This one, we made it a little too narrow, so that's good. And then let's see this canine. Emergence lines up really well over here. Not so much over here, but let's just keep it going. Let's check contact strength. That's good. I like to see the contact strength somewhat similar to the contralateral side of the arch. So that's nice. That just tells me we have a good occlusal plane established. And as we increase the bite, we're gonna maintain a balanced occlusion. So that's nice to see. Okay, we could even just reference the contact strength that we have over there. Looks like we're going to need to do something about that, because basically what we want to see is even contact strength across the entire posterior. So that'll need to be bumped up. And I think even, yeah, perfect. Okay. Keeping all the same things in mind as we position these posterior teeth on the lower, we're still referencing buccal corridor. Oh, you could probably hear my dog. He's fine. He's sad because my daughter's at school. She just went back. Or he has to shit. One of the two. One of the two. Okay, so that's looking good. Good. I don't like the way that this tooth library is lining up with the natural teeth on the lowers. It could be better, for sure. Okay, but what I wanted to do is start adjusting these lowers to get an idea of what's going to fit that space on the upper that we have here. So we'll just call this good for now. It certainly needs to be refined, but we're just going to say, okay, that's good, because it's giving us a good idea of where things are going to land. And now we'll go back up here and see how, let's just save what we have for now. Like, obviously you could see we need to improve things. But let's switch this over to a bicuspid and see how that lines up. So let's go to load custom model. And then switch it over to a bicuspid. And then we could just refine it all. Then we'll go back into tooth placement and see how that looks. That doesn't look bad. Hey, you guys, I'm going to take a quick little break. We're just going to stop here for now. You won't skip a beat, but I'm going to take a little, maybe 30-minute break, let my dog out, and we'll jump right back in as soon as I get back. Okay, and we're back, and better than ever. That was about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. So it was a squirrel that my dog was crying about. He saw a squirrel in the backyard, and we can't be having that. So that had to get taken care of. Nice little snack for him. I'm joking. He didn't eat the squirrel. Calm down. Okay, so we left off on determining if a bicuspid will fit this space better, a third bicuspid, than a molar. And it definitely will, but let's just see how it lines up with occlusion. I mean, we're kind of in a situation where that's what we got to do. There's just really no room for a molar. And I don't think a little miniature molar is going to be better off for occlusion's sake than properly proportioned bicuspid. I think either way, aesthetically, this is for sure going to be better. And either way, for occlusion, we may have some compromises that we need to make, but we'll figure that out. Looking great. My God. I really hope that whoever is watching this or whoever started this video has made it this far. I've had a lot of fun making this, if I'm going to be honest. You know, it's quite entertaining for me. It makes the time go by pretty quick. But yeah, regardless, I don't mind doing it. Okay, so that's looking good. Yeah, we're lacking clearance here. Let's just see. Yeah, and Jesus, look at this. See, this isn't easy stuff to manage. I don't know how good we're going to be able to make that, but we'll do our best. Okay, we'll just stop there with that for now. And switch on over to the lowers, see what we can achieve there. And let's start getting it. Oh, wow. Things are really tight. What the hell? There we go. Things are really tight. Okay, so yeah, we could afford to bring that down. That's good. Let's see. That's much better. We're probably going to have to bump that up. Well, we for sure are. Bump that up as well. Let's check out our contact. Yeah, see, that's much more red than we have over here. So that's coming up. This one's going to have to do the same thing. Canine a little bit too. Which that's okay. We're not going to lose any visual symmetry by doing that. And let's just check the length here. I think we're probably, yeah, we're much shorter on this side, but I think we had to have been preoperatively as well. I mean, look at that. Jeez. So yeah, we're not really compromising too much. Still looks totally fine. especially, you know, given where she started from. This is going to be difficult. This is going to be really, really tricky, you guys. I'm just going to shoot it to you straight. It'd be nice to get a nice, a flatter. So what we're going to do here is go into, we're going to go into tooth placement for just these four, flatten them out a little bit more than we have them over here. Yeah, flat, 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 flat. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, we're fine. That's good. And then we could flatten this one out individually because we brought that in after the fact. Because we flattened these ones twice now and this one only once. So flat, flat, flat. There we go. That's better. Okay. And then this one, we can afford to go really flat. We're going to have to figure out something with that. Tooth placement. Let's go back in. And again, we can't flatten out the lowers with this tooth library, so if we could, we would. So we'll just have to manually do that. And then let's see. Let's see how our occlusal contact strength looks now. Yeah, so we're going to leave things as they are for a little while here, and then we'll make more adjustments to the occlusion. What a freaking mess on this. I thought this side was messy. This is... But, you know, this is why these cases are sent to me. It's like piecing a big puzzle. Piecing a puzzle. It's like piecing a puzzle together. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And I guess I'm good at piecing puzzles together. That's what they say. We can shorten that. That's going to improve the symmetry of the buccal corridor. You could see what I mean there. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to make compromises on this side. That's just the nature of the beast. And then let's see how our contact strength is doing there. That's good. That's actually, that's good. It's almost like, yeah, this one's a little trickier. Okay, let's bring that up. And we have an endodontalus space. Well, correct my terminology there. Endodontalus. We have a missing tooth here, so that we know that this is going to be a pontic. So we can afford to... Look at that, you guys. Fuck me. This is looking great. Excuse my language. This is just... If you don't like it, I don't know what to say. Because that's the only way that I could describe my excitement in that moment. Just a big old, fuck me. That looks good. I mean, given where we started, this is phenomenal. And it may be, you know, a bit of premature excitement, but, and no one likes that. But I can see that things are going to fall into place really nicely, which is not how I was feeling just 30 seconds ago. Okay. That's pretty good. You can see we have almost a little bit of a crossbite over here that we're correcting, so that's always nice. Okay. We have made it this far. This is about the time, I'm just going to check our height here. Yeah, and could go up a little bit more. This is about the time where we're going to start increasing the bite. We can all see that that's kind of how things are going to play out. We got to increase this bite a little bit more. I'm not liking this. This buccal corridor over here. You can see this one almost looks like it's hiding, and it is. But we don't want to bring it out anymore. I mean, we could tuck this one in, but that just means we're going to have to, we're going to have to play with the emergence of this tooth a little bit. But by tucking that in, it's actually going to be better functionally anyways, but aesthetically it's going to be better. We could I forget, we can't really bring things out anymore. So we'll just manually play with this buccal corridor because we've got a nice one over here. It's better, at least, than what we've got over here. So we'll just play around with that when we start refining things manually. I mean, we're still essentially just positioning these teeth. We'll drop this down to get this. You could see the marginal ridges aren't lined up, but that's actually in line with our contact strength as well. We could decrease this contact strength, increase it here at this marginal ridge. That'll line things up, and that'll also improve the contact, occlusal contact, that is. Okay, so very good. Very good. And also, we don't want the preoperative teeth to manipulate our what we're seeing with our contact strength, like it probably is a little bit over here. So we'll also, at this time, start virtually prepping just a little bit. So we could come over here, decrease that, and start virtually prepping. We've got a lot to adjust there. And we're just roughly virtually prepping, mostly on this occlusal surface, again, so it's not throwing us off with our contact strength for the wax up. So we don't need to focus too much on little stuff like that. That's on the facial. It's kind of irrelevant at this point. Well, honestly, most of it is on the occlusal surface. And if we can afford to bring it up, we will, but I feel like this is what we're doing here is like what we'll need to do at a minimum as far as the virtually prepping goes. Okay, so that's good. And then we'll come over here. See, we've increased the proportions of this tooth quite a bit, and that's because we had to cheat that. And I think we'll stop there because I want to raise that up. Little cheating there. But we don't want it to be too much, so I'm not going to just make it disappear into the pontic or into the wax up tooth. Okay, that's good, 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 good. Okay. Yeah, we're going to fix all of that. Okay, now let's analyze our contact strength. We're pretty even across the board. That's what we want to see, except for in the anterior. So we'll manipulate that after we increase the bite. But yeah, let's go into our articulator. And then let's remove this. Let's snap to this front view. And it's going to throw off the model axis a little bit. I guess you don't even need to think about that. Okay, so we're going to click the incisal. We went over to automatic. We're going to click the incisal point, and then we're going to click left molar and then right molar. As you can see, we don't have a right molar, so we'll just do premolar, premolar. Perform alignment, and we don't need to be precise here in any way, but we are going to somewhat manipulate, go back into manual, hold control down, and we are going to manipulate this a little bit. Okay, I think that's good. And we're going to bring our articulator back, line up this with the incisal point. So we're going to click Z axis, and then boom, click OK. Then we're going to get an error message more than likely. We're going to click it's okay, leave gap, because we had a bite that was raised with our bite scan that was imported. And now what we're going to do here to determine what opening we need is we're going to bring the pontics in and start opening it up. Okay, and then if we decrease or increase the transparency of one arch, you could start to see where things intersect. So those are high contact points. And let's see what we have over here, same deal. So we could use that to help us determine the opening that's required. And I think that's looking really good. because we can manually drop all of that down. Let's do this. Okay, so I think that that's probably good. Maybe a little too much over. No, this is all really good. But we're going to naturally open up the anterior portion more than the posterior portion, so we got to manage that as well. You could see we've, yep, sure as shit, we've created a pretty significant open bite over here, and to fill all that in is going to be quite a bit. So we're going to have to compromise. I think we can live with that. A 0.8. You can still manually adjust all of that. And that doesn't leave us with a huge opening that's going to be aesthetically compromising to close. So maybe we could go a little bit more. We'll play around with that. So let's click simulate articulation or articulator, start articulator, whatever. And then we'll click OK. Then we're going to click revert raise bite. I prefer doing that because then we're still in line with the photo. And what I mean by that is the scan is still in line with the photo. If we kept keep bite raised, this would happen. And then we wouldn't be able to bring it back down. So anyways, there's that. Yeah, so I think at this point, I kind of want to hammer in what we're going to do here in the anterior before we go too far into adjusting the occlusion. So let's go to raise or tooth placement. We may need to lengthen the centrals a little bit. It's possible. This is the only smiling photo that we have. It's a big smile. I unfortunately don't know kind of if with a more natural smile how the lower lip lines up with the incisal edge, the current incisal edge. So we're just going to take a shot in the dark and increase these a little bit. Let's bring in our grid to make sure that we're symmetrically increasing the length. You can see a little bit too much right there. But this is a cheat. We're kind of cheating here with the length to help us close things up, which will also give us some more room to bulk out the lingual. The shorter we go, the less room we have to create width there on the lingual, just proportionally speaking. So let's remove that. Let's go back into simple. And then let's see the opening we're left with. God, that's a lot. And that's the tricky thing, especially with patients like this where most of their wear or lack of occlusal clearance is in the posterior. And you see that pretty often. Yeah, it just makes it difficult managing the anterior region when you need such a large opening in the posterior, but let's say not as much in the anterior. It makes it a little tricky. So I'd say let's just go to there. And if we don't get solid contact, I'm also not totally against that. We don't necessarily need we could be slightly out of occlusion in the anterior, and that's not going to really be an issue. Okay. Now let's increase this a little bit to improve our occlusal plane, and then we'll reduce on the... Damn, it's just, I don't like how tall these are looking. So yeah, we'll now go into free form and see what we can do there on the lingual of the uppers to get better. Because, I mean, we've added not too much. We're fine. But we had to cheat. We had to. And now is a time where you actually could kind of flare these out. In fact, I think I might flare out those lower incisors a little bit to get us closer to where we need to be. So we'll go into simple, rotate, buccal lingual tilt, and that's going to make our movement more precise. Boom, boom, boom. We could actually, and then boom. We could move this over a little bit. That looks good. Let's check our emergence. That might have actually improved where we're lined up at the emergence, and it did. And now our overjet should still be pretty good. It is. Oh my God, there's just so much to close up. I think it decreased the length a little bit when we rotated them out. It certainly did. Let's also, we could look at it from this angle and start seeing. So we're actually along the same axis as the preoperative teeth, the angulation rather of the teeth. You could see we're in line with that. So that's, that tilt that we did may have actually just been beneficial. Let's go into freeform and see what we need to do on the lingual of these teeth. And I wonder how much wear she has on the lingual. Oh, pretty decent amount. You could see she was riding off of that lingual portion. A lot of erosion here on the facial, and then a good amount of wear on the incisal edge. So bulking out the lingual, in other words, is not gonna, it's actually gonna, it's gonna help clinically speaking with a reduction that's required. That's how much we need to bring it out. Yeah, that's a good amount. So, let's see, boom. Damn, that's a lot. I think we're just gonna stay. Nope, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna undo a little bit of that. Yeah, we're just gonna undo what we've done there for now. And I wanna go back into the articulator and decrease the VDO a little bit. I think that's what we gotta do. So, in other words, we might have increased it a little too much. We're gonna still click it's okay, leave gap, and then let's drop it down. Damn, we might not. We might not have. We might not be able to raise this bite. Let's see. We could go a little bit. Boom. We're just gonna raise it until these are out of occlusion, and that's about here at, yeah, let's say 0.4. That's good. Okay, well, we were able to raise it 0.5 millimeter, so that gave us a little bit that gave us a little bit better clearance here in the posterior. So now we're going to go into freeform, and this, my friends, is pretty much the final stage. We've positioned these teeth, we've hammered out occlusion, occlusal plane, aesthetics, anatomy, pretty much all of that. Now all that we need to focus on is lining the teeth up with the emergence profile and then manually adjusting these contact points in the posterior to get the occlusion where we need it. So, I mean, honestly, at this point, I could say I'll just fast forward through the video, but we've been together for this long, so if you want to fast forward yourself, you can, but I'll stay here with you guys. I'll walk you through this, but at the end of the day, there's not much to really teach at this point. Let's do this though. Let's bring in the lowers and see where our cusps line up here on this side. That's all looking good. We can bring that out a little bit. That's looking good, 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 good. That's good. This one is where we added in that premolar, so it's not going to be ideal. So what we'll do to avoid any interferences is create a little here as well. Drop these lingual cusps a little bit. And then we will also drop the lingual cusp on this side. And that's gonna help us out there. And you can see as you start running into areas that where, like, okay, let's say I just want to reduce this central groove or fossa, whatever you want to call it. Or maybe we want to bring it, yeah, actually we might want to. I'll show you. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, so I think we can bring it back a little bit. what we'll do is we'll lock in certain aspects that we don't want to adjust. So say we like where this is all lined up, then we'll lock in the cusp tips. And then we'll go to adjust entire tooth, and then you could bring those back. However you'd like. But this will also help with dropping down this fossa as well. Central fossa, central groove. Yeah, that's good. That's going to get us out of contact there. Okay, and then we can bring it back to unlocked mode. Then at some point we're going to start just reducing down. Reduce, 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 reduce. And if you remember, this actually is all kind of coming together pretty well. Because if you remember, we're able to flatten out these posterior teeth on the upper when we were positioning them, but we were unable to do that here on the lower. So naturally, what that would tell me is we can afford to adjust a little bit more aggressively on the lower than we need to on the upper. Oops. See there, I lost a little bit of anatomy. So, and that's one thing to keep in mind. If you start smoothing, you're gonna lose anatomy. So you want to kind of create like a negative, or rather, you just want to remove more than you want to smooth. And you know, obviously, you're gonna have to smooth at some point, and I'm just clicking through these contact points. I'm not really holding anything down because I want these adjustments to be precise. So I'm just kind of feathering through. Feather, 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 feather. Okay. See, now if we were to smooth this shit out, now you've lost your anatomy. So that's why we do those like negative adjustments. Let's say positive, neutral, negative. Okay, and then here, adjust, adjust, adjust. There's a lot to do there. I don't really want anything on that. Okay. Marginal ridge. You could. I don't know if you remember, but earlier when we were designing, I said this marginal ridge wasn't lined up well, and it's not. So we'll kind of just drop this down, bring this, bring that up. Well, now that's lined up, but can we afford to do that based on what we're seeing with the upper? We will soon find out. Stick around, stay tuned. Drop these down a little bit. Same thing here, drop that down, drop that down. And then I actually want to bring this up. So we'll do that. Bring this over, and then we can afford to smooth this out right here. Okay, let's see how that's looking. Ooh, looking good. Okay, and then I'm gonna kind of just flatten that out a little bit. You could also use this tool right here. Boom, 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 boom. Da-dang, dang, dang. Okay, turn it up. Okay, that's nice. Do that. And then same thing, we can afford to bring that over. Bring this up, down. Bring it around. You do the loop-de-loop and turn. Okay, that's good. And then same thing over here. We'll smooth out this little lobe. Just create a better interproximal relationship. This buccal corridor kind of is actually looking pretty good now. We can bring that in a little bit. And then, I mean, honestly, what we could do is kind of just pop that up. Now that's looking nice. Nice, nice, baby. Okay, bring that out. Like I said, I could have fast forwarded through this, but I guess we're just gonna stick around, get to really know each other. Okay, that's all good. Let's just get rid of that while we're here. Boom. Okay. So we're looking good over here. I do want to kind of smooth that out a bit. Okay. And then let's go back to the upper and see what we could do with these contacts. Oh, yeah, this is good. Because we got some emergence to sort out over here. That can all come in. And that's going to create a little bit of a compromise there. So we're going to lock in that cusp, bring this over like that. Because we manipulated this a lot. And then same thing here. Ah, shoot. See, and then you can lock in the occlusal. And I think, yeah, now. We'll just do this. You know what? We're going to go here to this. And remember, right underneath that tissue is where we're going to adjust and then smooth. That's really heavy. Okay. Okay. So that's good. Well, it's good for what we need. Is that what I wanted? No. But is that what the doctor ordered? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay. It's looking great, you guys. Holy shit. I really like this. How it's coming together. Because it was not looking pretty at first. But I mean, at this point, we're running downhill. It's just essentially a matter of time. A lot of little adjustments to make. But we're just about there. We could correct this area right here because that's looking wonky. Drop that down, improve that. And then I think we could drop this down. We've got plenty of contact to remove. So it's almost like this could be flattened out more. Okay, let's move this cusp back. And then that needs to come over. Not bad. Not great, but for what we have to work with, not bad. That's where I'm going to smooth out. And I'm going to smooth this out right here a little bit to create well, let's just, in layman's terms, a smoother ramp for this patient to function off of. And now we could go back over here, and we'll kind of smooth this one out as well. Yeah. Drop it down. Drop it down. There we go. Yes. And this is what I like to see. Once you start seeing this, it's just a little bit of feathering with this negative or removal, and just going back and forth between the two arches, and then you're done. So let's fill that in because it needs a little bit of a Dr. fill in. That is lame. I said that. Emergence. And you know what, you guys? I'm sure you've had enough of me at this point. I'm just going to fast forward through this. And yeah, I would say stick around till the end so you can see how it all kind of comes together. Just visually see how we tie this all up. But there's really nothing else for me to say. I've kind of shared all of my thoughts. If I can think of anything, I'll slow it down. But I'd say you could fast forward through this and not really miss anything. So I will see you on the other end of these adjustments, and we'll go from there. Okay, guys, so at this point, we have lined up the emergence of the teeth. We've refined some of the spacing, some of the contours. We're pretty much there. The last little bit, which is not so little, but the last thing we got to do is refine the occlusion, which, again, I kind of alluded to earlier. It's just going to be a matter of going back and forth between the upper jaw and lower jaw and removing that occlusal contact. Before we do that, I want to do another virtual prep so that we have a really clear idea of, you could see just the discrepancy between the proportions of the patient's left side and the right side. That was to be expected, but it's not compromising anything all that much. So I do want to kind of play with this a little bit right there. Okay, that's groovy. Yeah, so let's go over to freeform scan data. We're going to start with really either jaw first. So right now we're doing the lower jaw. And here, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Alrighty, we're not editing that out. I don't have the time to do it. Okay, so just had to close up the door. Yeah, so we're just basically eliminating any portion of the preoperative teeth that are protruding through the wax up. And, you know, on the, like, we could blend this out because I think that's just bad scan data. So we'll do that. Same thing here, kind of along the tissue. We'll correct that. Hammer that out. Hammer that out. That. And then I'm assuming this isn't going to be the last time we virtually prep. We'll probably go in and do this once more after we do the occlusion. But this should give you a pretty good idea of the final outcome for the lower jaw. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the upper jaw. And I must say, it's looking good. So we'll refine that. You can see bad scan data, which is pretty common in these areas. I would say like the gingival, interproximal, embrasure. We do need to fix that, which we will as we do our occlusion. Okay, you could see we had to distalize this canine, so a lot more to reduce there so that we could create room for better proportions on that lateral, as well as filling in the distal portion of this canine to fill in the diastema. So I don't know if that needed any explaining, but you could see kind of just all that we've done as we start to virtually prep. Okay, so let's get a good look at occlusion. Looking really good in terms of contours, anatomy. This should give you a nice idea too of where we landed. I mean, big improvement, big improvement. She's looking very skeletal with all of those black triangles, the diastemas, the wear. This is a much fuller, brighter, youthful, feminine, all of the above look. So really liking it. And as you could see, you know, we did have to increase the lowers, maybe a little bit more. No, it's about the same. So yeah, super happy with this, you guys. Let's finalize this. Let's do the occlusion. Let's fix that emergence profile on that second molar on this side. I believe it was this side. We'll fix that. Do the occlusion, and then we're good to go. And I was going to fast forward through this, but there may be some pointers to give you guys as we work on the occlusion. Okay, then we'll smooth. Smooth, that's much better. Obviously. Okay. Second molar, first molar, actually. Okay. Okay, I could confidently say, we could fill that in. Fill that in. Give it a little bit of smoothie. And then I think I saw, yep, right here. Could also fill this in. Doctor, fill it in. If you got a hole, we're here to fill it. Okay, that's all looking good. Really nice. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just alternate between the upper jaw, the lower jaw, and this is a lot, honestly. This is a lot to fill in. I would have liked to increase the VDO a little bit more, but we were really, it got to a point where we were limited on how much we could do that because of the open bite that we were creating in the anterior. It was a bit excessive. Again, we were able to flatten out the upper teeth when we were positioning them. That was kind of a feature that's available for this tooth library, only on the upper. So a lot of the flattening out we'll do on the lower. And I'm really trying to manage this as best I can. There's a lot to reduce. So I would say we'll just stop there for now. And then let's go over to the lower. We already did a lot over here, so we're just going to focus on this side for now. Remember, most of it is removing. I'll start smoothing things out, like in a, let's see, in a region like right here. But a lot of it is just a bulk removal. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. God, there's so much. Fuck. Ugh. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. There's really no way around it. I mean, we have such a tight occlusal clearance over here. There's not much more you can do other than hack away at it. Yeah, and again, this is primarily because of the, and I'm going to use this right here to create like a nice flat surface. I'm not going to like that. Nope. I think we've done as much removing as I want to do on this canine. We'll just kind of refine the shape a little bit, I guess. It doesn't even look bad. No, it doesn't, and it matches pretty well. So now let's switch over to upper, back over to upper, and the more we remove right here, the more of a sharp canine we're going to create, which, don't know if you remember, this was much earlier in the video, but the patient naturally had these sharp canines because of that wear pattern. So, you know, I would like to reduce that as much as possible, but I think we just got to work with what God wants out of this. Unless we were to do, I mean, I guess we could tip them back a little bit. Yeah, we could tip that back like so. We're getting to a point where I'm almost going to say we'll just finish this up by increasing it a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of an open bite in the anterior unless we lengthen these pretty dry. I mean, we already have a little bit of one, but I think I'll just compensate a bit more on the lingual portion of these teeth, the upper incisors, to close that up. So what we're going to do is just bring this out to about the same occlusal contact level or strength as we see in this posterior. And let's just do this. There we go. We got a little bit there. Let's just shoot for a little bit because we don't want a lot in general anyways. Let's see what we can achieve there. Oh, minimal overjet. I think that was from flaring them out. But again, it was at the same angulation as the preoperative teeth, which is also, you know, by creating that same angulation, we're also going to help with reduction. If we were to change up that angulation by retroclining them too far, it's going to require a lot of reduction at that incisal portion of those lowers, which they're already worn down. We want to try to limit the especially with lower incisors. You want to limit as much reduction as you can on that portion of the arch. So I'd say we're good with the overjet we have currently. And I don't think it's necessary to flare out the uppers. It's just not. And with that lack of overjet, it's actually going to be beneficial to have somewhat of a slight open contact or light contact. So it's all going to come together is what I'm saying. This is all looking pretty good. So we've got the contact there that we need. I'm just kind of trying to match the lower portion to flow better with the increase that we did at this incisal portion to make contact. So now that we've got that all blended well, we'll go back into our articulator. There's still going to be adjustments to make, I mean, honestly, but we're almost there. Leave gap. Let's remove that. Bring this in. Remove the scans, that is. Let's decrease or increase the transparency of the uppers. We can see where we're intersecting, and let's start raising up that bite. Okay. Let's give that a go. See how we're looking. And we are looking good. It's looking really, really good. Now let's just finish up this. This occlusal clearance is so freaking tight. It's starting to irritate me how much we got to reduce here, but that's just what we got to do. Okay, there. Let's hit it right there. There we go. There we go. There we go. And I think at this point I'm going to reduce, I'm going to reduce the lowers from here. It's actually going to help with the buccal corridor. Certainly did. Okay. And then back here. Boy, you guys, if you stuck around this long, which I doubt anyone has, if you're here, leave it in the comments. Let me know you made it all the way through, because I respect the hell out of that. And I'm glad this video was informative and hopefully entertaining enough for you to stick around. So, yeah, if you have, leave it in the comments. I'm going to send you a gift basket. Not really. Not in this economy. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'm saying that because we are just about done. This is it. Drum roll, please. Drum roll, please. There we go. Now we can go in and enhance this anatomy, but there's honestly not much to enhance. We didn't get rid of too much of it when we were making our occlusal adjustments, so that's always good. We can bring this out a little bit. Of course, it's not in line with the emergence, but again, maybe we can cheat that with the finals and with proper marginal placement. I would rather do that and show the patient an ideal outcome than not do it. And then we could bring this in technically, but there's really no need. We're so far back in the posterior. I think I'm just gonna leave it. Let's see, that could come in a little bit, but wow. Wow. There's a little bit of, see, now I'm getting lazy. We could virtually reduce that or just go boom, 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 boom. And then kind of smooth that out. Boom. Okay. This is phenomenal, you guys. Look at that. This was a difficult tooth to manage. I mean, look at what it looked like before. We're able to make that a little more ideal. Occlusion is looking really nice. Just fill that in. Doctor, fill it in. Okay, let's see what's going on with occlusion right here, because I don't want to reduce anymore. There we go. Just doing a double check on everything. Everything looks really nice. And then lastly, what I like to do, I just noticed with this tooth library, we have holes right here in these pontics. So we're going to have to address that in order to get these to properly stitch, I believe. So let's just do this real quick. I'm going to close up those holes. And then the last little bit, highlight these teeth, go to freeform. We could have done the lowers at the same time. And then we're going to click interproximal. That's going to give us nice deep embrasures. Or if we didn't do that, it kind of just all blends together, the interproximal embrasures, when you 3D print it. So that looks good. We'll do the same thing on the lower, and then you can see we got a little more virtual prepping to do so that we can get rid of any preoperative teeth that are showing in the embrasure space. Back here, proximal. Bada bing, bada boo. Okay. And then back to freeform. And we'll kind of just cut that back. Bada bing, bada boo. Then we got to make sure it didn't go through on the lingual side. It's good. It's good, 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 good. We can do this right here. Which I was definitely expecting it there. Okay, now let's check the lower. Oh yeah, I forgot we were cheating that. You know what? We don't even need to cheat it. I just realized that emergence on this premolar, because we could leave it bulked out over here. We just have to. I could be totally wrong though. We could just kind of shift it. Let's see. We may end up moving the. No, we're good. Oh, look at that. Oh, would you look at that? And then we'll just have to fill that in. Doctor, fill it in. Red Solo Cup. I fill you up. Okay. Yeah, good. We didn't have to cheat anything. That was a big old puzzle to piece together, but we did it. We made it through. You can see I left a little bit of CJ appearance. Just going to kind of visually reduce the length, and honestly, I just think it looks cool. Now, we'll go right here. Model alignment. Let's refine our model alignment because it's certainly more than likely, yep, doesn't match. And now when we print the model, the base will be parallel with the smile line. Just do this. Proceed to party. Okay. Now we can click OK, and then we'll make our models, and we are done. Model, plateless model design. We're going to tell it to include the Pontics. Well, while those models are getting created, I'm going to close out this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you made it this far. Leave a comment if you did, because that's pretty fucking badass. But regardless, I appreciate you for watching. And till next time, see you later.